time is precisely 6:15. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here's the news edited by Anjana Dudamgoda and read by Ramesh Piris. The headlines. The Indian Prime Minister invites President Ranil Wickremesinghe to his swearing-in ceremony scheduled to be held this weekend. The IMF anticipates quick agreements with creditors. The DMC explains how to obtain government's grant to clean flood-affected homes. The national school teacher appointments for 10,535 to be filled in 2 weeks. The Supreme Court declares Gender Equality Bill inconsistent with Sri Lankan Constitution. The family of victim Yvonne Johnson says the ruling by the Supreme Court to revoke the presidential pardon is a significant step for all female victims in Sri Lanka. Heavy rainfall pegged to enhance in the coming days. In international news, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu to address US Congress on July 24th. In sports, artificial hockey rinks to debut in Matale and Colombo. Now the local news in detail. The Presidential Media Division said in a statement that during a telephone conversation, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi invited President Ranil Wickremesinghe to his swearing-in ceremony due to be held this weekend, which the latter accepted. Prime Minister Modi and the National Democratic Alliance, the NDA, won the highest number of seats in the recent Lok Sabha election. President Wickremesinghe congratulated Prime Minister Modi on the NDA's victory and re-election for the third time. President Wickremesinghe posted on social media that the closest neighbour, Sri Lanka, looks forward to further strengthening the partnership with India. The International Monetary Fund says there is a strong expectation that Sri Lanka will soon reach agreements with external commercial creditors consistent with program parameters. Julie Kozak, director of the IMF Communications Department, said during a press briefing on Thursday that overall assessment is that there has been sufficient strong progress on the debt restructuring front. On March 21st, IMF staff and the Sri Lankan authorities reached staff-level agreement on economic policies to conclude the second review of the economic reform program and also the 2024 Article 4 consultation. Kozak confirmed that on June 12th, the IMF Executive Board will meet to discuss Sri Lanka's second review and the Article 4 consultation. Education Minister Susil Premajayantha stated in Parliament that the Education Ministry has already taken measures to fill 10,535 teacher vacancies in national schools within the next 2 weeks. The minister further said that the steps have been taken to recruit 6,000 teachers at provincial level. The minister made these comments whilst joining a debate on education. The minister also said that due to the country's education sector suffered a severe setback by the year 2022 due to the post-COVID-19 crisis situation. All the examinations were delayed by around 6 months. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. We continue with more local news. Sri Lanka Supreme Court has determined that the promulgation of the bill titled Gender Equality is inconsistent with Article 12 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court has determined that the bill as a whole cannot be enacted into law unless the appropriate procedure laid down in Article 84 and Article 83 and read with Article 80 of the Constitution, which requires that the number of votes cast in favour thereof must amount to not less than 2/3 of the whole number of members of Parliament, including those not present, and is approved by the people at a referendum. The Speaker of Parliament, Mahinda Yapa Abewardena, announced the determination to the House today. In the wake of the announcement of the judgment, the family of victim Yvonne Johnson said the ruling is not only a victory for our family but also for who believe in the rule of law. Her sister Caroline Johnson, who issued the statement on behalf of the family, said it is also a significant step for all female victims in Sri Lanka, affirming that their lives and dignity cannot be compromised by arbitrary decisions. The Supreme Court ruling that former President Maithripala Sirisena's pardon of Yvonne's murder is arbitrary and not valid in law brings us a profound sense of relief and justice. The Supreme Court ordered former President Maithripala Sirisena to pay 1 billion rupees to the petitioner in the fundamental rights petition filed challenging former President's decision to grant a presidential pardon to Royal Park murder convict Don Shamantha Jude Anthony Jayamaha. Caroline Johnson further said that the tragic and brutal loss of Yvonne has left an unfillable void in our hearts, causing us immense and ongoing pain. The pardon felt like a deep betrayal, compounding our grief and anguish. The judgment reaffirms the importance of justice and accountability, emphasizing that decisions of such significance cannot be made on a whim. She added that her family is deeply grateful to the judiciary who worked tirelessly on this case and held integrity throughout the entirety of this matter. And that concludes local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
And moving on to the main news story. The Disaster Management Centre informs the general public regarding the method for obtaining the 10,000 rupees grant to be provided by the government in order to clean up the flood-affected houses. Director of the DMC, Pradeep Kodipalli, stated that the Gramanildari certificate and a recommendation is required for the purpose. Director of the DMC emphasized that the government has decided to provide 10,000 rupees each for the families affected by floods in order to clean up their houses. People will need to submit the Gramanildari certificate and a recommendation from the Gramanildari officer to obtain this grant. Furthermore, the DMC director expressed that people of 113 divisional secretariat divisions in 13 districts have been affected by the prevailing extreme weather conditions across the island since the 1st of June this year. That was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
And in Watchlight this evening, Kegol District Secretary Chandana Jayasinghe announced that the Pahala Kadugannava area on the Colombo Kandy Road will be closed from time to time tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. He added that the road would be closed to clear unsafe trees and boulders, and motorists are advised to use alternative roads. And that came to you in Watchlight.
Coming up, World News.
And moving on to the bulletin of world news, and first the headlines. Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu to address US Congress on the 24th of July. Rishi Sunak apologizes for leaving D-Day events early, calling it a mistake. SpaceX's Starship completes first full test flight after surviving re-entry. Now the world news in detail. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will address a joint meeting of the United States Congress on the 24th of July, according to top US lawmakers. The confirmation of the late date on Thursday came a week after Netanyahu was formally invited to speak before US politicians in the latest show of support for the long-time ally, despite mounting political divisions over Israel's military assault on Gaza. House Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat, along with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries, said in the letter the existential challenges we face, including the growing partnership between Iran, Russia and China, threaten the security, peace and prosperity of our countries and of free people around the world. Netanyahu's appearance before an increasingly divided Congress is sure to be controversial and met with plenty of protests, both inside the capital from lawmakers and outside by pro-Palestinian protesters. Rishi Sunak says it was a mistake to leave D-Day commemorations in Normandy prematurely on Thursday. Reports had circulated that Sunak left ahead of world leaders gathering on Omaha Beach, and it later transpired that he had taken part in an ITV interview. Sunak says it was a mistake not to stay in France longer and apologized. Labour accused him of dereliction of duty. Earlier, Sunak denied that claims he made about Labour's tax plan were dubious after Keir Starmer accused him of lying. It comes after a TV debate between Sunak and Starmer, during which the Prime Minister Sunak claimed a Labour government would mean £2,000 tax rises per working household. SpaceX's Starship rocket has completed its first ever full flight after surviving re-entry in a breakthrough for the prototype system that may one day send people to Mars. 3 previous missions have ended with the rocket, which stands nearly 121 meters tall, blowing up or disintegrating. But this time Starship survived re-entry and made a controlled fall into the Indian Ocean just 65 minutes after launching from the US state of Texas. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk wrote on X, "Today was a great day for humanity's future as a spacefaring civilization." Starship blasted off from the company's starbase in Boca Chica, Texas at 12:50 GMT before soaring to space and coasting halfway across the globe. Back to the headlines of the world news. Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu to address US Congress on the 24th of July. Rishi Sunak apologizes for leaving D-Day events early, calling it a mistake. And SpaceX's Starship completes first full test flight after surviving re-entry. And that concludes World News.
Development News.
Moving on to Development News. President Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized the importance of focusing on products that can succeed in the competitive export market by prioritizing paddy production. He stressed the need to advance towards competitive agriculture by 2030 through the adoption of modern technology. The President highlighted that the future cannot be secured without focusing on competitive products. He emphasized that it is advisable to discontinue products that cannot compete in the export market. And that was Development News.
Moving on with sports news.
In sports news, Minister of State for Sport and Youth Affairs Rohana Disanayake announced that the preparations have been completed to inaugurate artificial hockey rinks in Matale and Reed Avenue, Colombo before 15th of July under the directives of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. He emphasized the government's commitment to overcome legal hurdles within various sports federations, paving the way for a new era in sports development. Minister of State for Sports and Youth Affairs made these remarks during a press conference held today at the Presidential Media Center themed Collective Path to a Stable Country. Elaborating further, State Minister Disanayake said the artificial hockey rinks at Reed Avenue in Colombo and Matale, which were previously closed for years, are undergoing modernization as per directives from President Ranil Wickremesinghe and Sports Minister Haren Fernando. A special program with a budget of 140 million rupees for Matale and 160 million rupees for Colombo is underway to revamp these facilities, set to reopen before the 15th of July under President Ranil Wickremesinghe's supervision. And that was Sports News.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Moving on to business news. The Embassy of Sri Lanka in Brasilia, with 60 other diplomatic missions based in Brazil, participated in the International Food and Culture Exhibition 2024, which was held at the Museum de Arte de Brasilia on the 1st of June 2024. The Sri Lankan stall was decorated with Sri Lankan scenic pictures and offered Sri Lankan finger foods, sweets and Ceylon tea to the visitors. During the event, Sri Lankan tourism promotional videos were screened on the wide digital screen of the main lobby area of the venue. Further, tourism promotional leaflets in Portuguese language were distributed to the visitors. And that was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak thiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Moving on to economic news. Dealers said Sri Lanka's rupee improved slightly to open at around 302 rupees and 55 cents to the US dollar today in the first half of trading, while bond yields were steady and stocks opened 0.15% higher. Sri Lanka rupee closed at 302 rupees and 80 cents to 303 rupees and 10 cents to the greenbacks on Thursday. In the secondary market, yields were slightly down. And that was economic news.
Weather report.
And finally, we move on to the weather report. The The Department of Meteorology states that the prevailing rainy condition in the southwestern part of the island is expected to enhance to some extent in the next few days from today. In its latest forecast, the Meteorology Department mentioned that showers will occur at times in the western, Sabaragamuwa and southern provinces and in the Kandy and Nuwara districts. While heavy showers above 50 millimeters are likely at some places in the western and Sabaragamuwa provinces and in the Nuwara, Galle and Matara districts. Several spells of showers will occur in the northwestern, northern and north-central provinces, it added. Meanwhile, showers or thundershowers may occur at few places in the Uva province and in the Ampara and Batiklo districts in the evening or at night. Strong winds of about 40 to 50 kilometers per hour can be expected at times over the northern, north-central, northwestern provinces and in the Trincomalee and Hambantota districts. The general public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damage caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thundershowers. And that was the weather report. And now to conclude this news broadcast, a recap of the main news headlines. The Indian Prime Minister invites President Ranil Wickremesinghe to his swearing-in ceremony scheduled to be held this weekend. The IMF anticipates quick agreements with creditors. The DMC explains how to obtain government's grant to clean flood-affected homes. The national school teacher appointments for 10,535 to be filled in 2 weeks. The Supreme Court declares gender equality bill inconsistent with the Sri Lankan constitution. The family of victim Yvonne Johnson says the ruling by the Supreme Court to revoke the presidential pardon is a significant step for all female victims in Sri Lanka. Heavy rainfall pegged to enhance in the coming days. And in international news, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu to address US Congress on the 24th of July. And finally in sports, artificial hockey rinks to debut in Matale and Colombo. And with that we conclude this news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Back to your Friday evening's hostess, Saudi Tavam, to keep you company. Over to you, Saudi.